Hi, everybody. It's Jamie Grogan with Journey with Solutions for Solopreneurs. We are continuing our series, Journey to Entrepreneurship. And today we are chatting with someone that was on our Trifecta Tuesday show a couple weeks ago. And I'm so happy to have her back, mostly because now I get her all to myself. And I can
Woo!
actually ask her all the questions that I want to ask, um,
Yes.
and
Love that.
be able to hear her story because she has some I just amazing like spots in her life that I was like, ooh, I want to know more about that. So I can't wait to ask her questions. So I want to make sure that if you are here, that you know you're in the right place. Because if you're watching the YouTube series, if you're listening to me on my podcast, I want to make sure that you know that you're supposed to be here. And don't
Mm.
scroll, don't change the podcast. Listen, because if you have a passion project, a side hustle, something that's been living inside of you that you've always wanted to make a business, I want to make sure that you know that you can do that. You can do
Mm.
that no matter your socioeconomic status, your race, your age, your disability, it doesn't matter. You can be successful online. There are a lot of things that go into being successful, and you have to determine that for yourself. When I started, there was nowhere I could go and find everyday stories about everyday people launching a business. There was all kinds of Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, Gary
Mm.
Vee, all of that out there. But I wanted the mother who was a stay-at-home mom that sewed and ended up creating that into a business and retiring her husband. Those were the
Mm.
stories that I was looking for. And because I couldn't find it, I created it. And that's what Journey to Entrepreneurship is all about. So, Christine, thank you so much for joining us. I truly appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I want you to introduce yourself. It can be as short or as long as you want, but you have to answer 3 questions.
Oh, okay.
Who do you serve? How do you serve them? And why do you serve them? Who, how,
Mhm.
why?
Love that. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me.
You're
What an
welcome.
awesome introduction. I feel inspired already by you saying just the whole equality thing of anyone can make it. I love that. I very much uh, strive for that as well when I am helping and coaching people and clients. So yeah, I am Christine Bar Noël. I am a life balance coach, and I guide mission-driven entrepreneurs to break cycles of perfection and self-doubt through sustainable habits and manifestation. So I love working with women entrepreneurs specifically, but I really work with anyone who's just driven through passion and wanting to help and do better in the world. Um, and yeah, and I work a lot with both the logic and the spiritual side. So I do sustainable habits and creating really healthy daily routines, as well as manifestation and limitless possibilities.
Right.
And yeah,
That's awesome. So tell us, why do you serve them?
you know, I am a mission-driven female entrepreneur, so
Right.
I very much relate, and I see so much of myself, my former self, and my current self, because we're always growing in so many of my clients. And I felt like after everything that I had learned, which is I feel most life coaches feel this way, they just feel like they've learned so much information and they've been able to overcome so many things, and they just can't keep it inside anymore. We have to share it. And
Mhm.
just when you see people struggling with the issues that you've had, you have to be like, it can be simpler.
That's right.
Life does not have to be this hard.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
yes, it's more just to guide those people who feel like they don't know, they know they need something, they know they can't sustain this type of lifestyle even if they are working really hard. um, and they need a way out and they're looking for answers.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Your why is so important. And everybody out
Yes.
there knows that I talk about this all the time. Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher,
Mm.
He's the number one motivational speaker in the world, and I listen to him every single morning. Um,
Love that.
and something that he says just sticks with me. He talks all the time about I can, I will, I must.
Yep.
Those are the three things that he says to himself all the time. And
Mm,
I actually say it to myself often when I, really remember to. And I need to put it on a sticky somewhere, but
for sure.
because it's something that really resonates with me because of my why. So I
Mhm.
can because I never thought I could before.
Mm,
I will because if I don't, things are going to stay the same. I must because I need to make sure that my children's lives are better than mine was.
yes,
So I can, I will, I must. So if
that's
you
beautiful.
can tie your why into those three statements, it's something that you will be able to draw on often, when things get
Yeah,
hard.
totally.
So, um,
I love
so
that.
thank you. So overall, what's your ideal client?
That's a great question. Because really you just kind of want to help people who come to you. But I do clarity calls with people to see if we're a good fit, because we want to make sure that we're both going to be putting in the work. I always say I'm the coach, I can guide you, but I can't do the work for you.
Right.
So I don't want you later to come back and say, well, you didn't get me the results that you promised. It's like, well, but you have to put in the work. So I do want people who are driven, who are ready for change. It can't be like, I'm searching for something, but I don't know if I'm ready to commit. Like I still have to maintain this lifestyle, and I still,
Right.
I'm not ready to put in that work and set aside time to make these changes, because honestly, any success you're trying to accomplish, you will be a different person at the end of that
Right.
journey. Like
Right.
you have to. You cannot create something new and different if you are not a different person. And
Right.
I think people get really scared with that, because they're like, well, that requires saying goodbye to some friends, and you just realize they don't serve you anymore. And you're like, well, I've been friends with this person for 10 years. I can't not go to lunch with them. Where do you want to be? You know
Right.
what I mean? And I'm not trying to be this person that's like, get rid of all of your friends and just be this solo person who's trying to make it. It's just, you have to understand that the lifestyle that you're living right now, if you don't feel like you're where you need to be, or you're living your true potential, then clearly there are things, people, environments that are affecting your growth.
Right.
And those things need to be weeded out. And so when we move through that, you end up coming to a place where you're like, yeah, I just don't feel connected to this space anymore. I don't feel connected to this person anymore. I don't feel, and then you make those choices that become a little bit easier because you are up leveling in your life.
Right.
So I am looking for people who are ready to make this shift, because I do have the answers, and I am excited for people to step into a new and higher version of themselves,
Right. Yeah. So you look very young. So
Thank you.
do you get a lot of questions about, your age and, how do you know that it'll work for me? Do you get a lot
Right.
of those types of questions? Because when I first started coaching, and I would meet, a young 20 something, before
Mm,
I did the work on myself, I would look at them and be like, what in the world do you think you could teach me? You know?
right.
And
Yeah.
and there's a lot of work that has to be done before you realize that that's not it. Age isn't anything. So how do
Right.
you first of all get that pushback? And if you do, how do you handle it?
Yeah, that's a great question. I will, just to clear the air, for the record, I am 31. I have no problem saying my age. I'm very happy to be where I am and what I'm doing. And I think, yeah, I started my first company when I was, let's see, it was 2014. So I was, let's see, that was what, 6 or 7 years ago. Yeah. So I became a world champion ballroom dancer because I come from ballroom dancing when I was 21. So already imagine the strength and the mental and all of the things that I had to go through leading up to 21 to be able to accomplish something at that high of a level.
Right.
So after that, I moved, I was already born in another country. I was born in France, moved to the United States. I then, did the world championship at 21. I then moved to Los Angeles because I was living in the middle of the United States. And all of these things are just building this core strength and understanding what I can handle, what I'm capable of. And, my parents always pushed my brother and I to be the best that we could be.
Mm-hmm.
And that just meant we became very skilled at a lot of different things because we wanted to try a lot of different things. So when I started my company in 2014, it started off as a public relations company that molded into social media marketing. And then eventually I think I dissolved it about a year ago. Near the end, it was event planning because I got really deep into, I got all these clients wanting me to host their events and they're like, well, you're already doing our social media. So can you just do the whole thing? And I had all these contacts and resources. So it just made sense. But I just didn't really feel like that was the impact I was meant to have. But I will say when I was in 2014, when I started my company, I did want to be taken more seriously. So I was a blonde most of my life and I went like black, like dark brown hair. And it made me look older. So I did. I wanted to be taken more seriously. I did take that into consideration.
Wow.
And I did do that. And I think it helped me also growing up in the ballroom dance industry with this level of sophistication and all of these things. Like I did hold myself a certain way. So people did not think I was very young. They just saw that I looked very young. But I always say, well, whenever they would say that, my answer would be, well, that's great because I'll look young forever.
Right. Yes.
I'm going to be that J-Lo beauty all the way until I'm 50, 60, right? So that didn't really faze me. You have to kind of own who you are and know that you have value no matter how old you are. And the second part of that I wanted to say is that you really, I think that our generation, because I am a very proud millennial, and I think that our generation have really had to figure out the new template for life. It's not the go to college, get a degree, get a job, work that job for 30, 40 years, have a family and retire. It's just not that anymore.
Thank God.
I was going to say, I'm very happy with that. It's not a thing I'm mourning, but I will say that in doing that and in replacing that type of lifestyle. And for those who still like that lifestyle, also not judgment there. By all means, I say, if you want to be a lawyer, an engineer, a doctor, or anything like that, like that's the path for you. But for those of us who are really looking into so many different technological and artistic
ventures,
ventures, it's very, very different. And we are all creating that because everybody's path looks different. And so it's been very difficult because I can't, for someone who says, well, what kind of schooling do you have for this? Or what did you do? Or how old are you? Do you have enough experience? And I said, well, back in the old days, parents, grandparents, like that's a logical question they would ask. But no, it's not that way anymore because I've met people who are even 5-10 years younger than me that have been through so much. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you could be someone's lifeline to how they can help themselves, how they can fix the trauma they've been through or whatever it is. And I've met some of these life coaches in my community that are really changing lives, and it doesn't matter how old they are.
Right. So. Yeah. 100%. And I say that, I bring that up because there are, people assume that I'm a lot younger than I am. And then the minute I say I have a 27-year-old daughter, and they look at me and go, say what now?
You're right.
I'm
sorry. One more time.
You were 12 when you had her, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, nope, just like you, I have my phrases that I say when they,
of course,
like good genes, and I, thank you, melanin is another one that I say.
I was just going to say, there's another one that everyone loves to use, but I won't say it.
It's so true.
But
But
yeah.
I'll be 50 in July, and
Wow.
I'm
Congrats.
super proud of that, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, gray hair and all, I'm proud of it all,
Yeah.
because it brought me to where I am, you know,
Absolutely.
and because of the work that I've done internally, I can now look at everybody with respect and empathy.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you can't do that, then you need to work some more on yourself. Uh,
Totally agree.
and it's funny because for the last, let's see, my oldest is 27, so more, wow, more than that. I'm gonna say probably around, she was about 10 when that whole bashing of the millennials started, and they're
Mm-hmm.
entitled and blah blah blah, you know.
And they don't
And
want to commit, and they're yeah.
right, and they're flaky, and you know, all
Yep.
of the negative things.
Yep.
And I was always, up until very recently, and I'm going to say in the last 3 years, I was always the only one in the room that would be like, so if this generation is that way, who raised them?
Right.
I said, so if you're pointing the finger at them, you realize that you're pointing four fingers at yourself, because that's who raised this generation that you
Absolutely.
say is all of these things. I said,
Yep.
but when you were a kid, didn't they say, oh, you guys are blah, blah, blah? I said, every generation has the previous generation giving them shit.
Yeah.
That's just the way that it is, right? I mean, I remember when I was really little and my grandmother used to talk about my mom's generation,
Right.
you know? So,
Absolutely.
but the difference now is that slowly but surely, that generation that looked down on the millennials, they're no longer the people doing the hiring.
Right.
They're no longer the people's whose vote counts
Matters.
more.
Right.
Because even though, and this is what I said to a friend of mine, I said, even though, you know, you only vote once, I, as not a non-millennial, probably cannot sway anybody else's vote in my generation. But
Mm.
millennials talk to each other.
Yes.
And they're like, oh, I never thought of it that way.
Right.
So I'm not going to vote the way that I was going to vote. I'm going to vote this way. So
Isn't that such a, like, gosh, I just got chills all over my body when you said that, because that's something that I think as a millennial, I take for granted that we do as a generation that I didn't even think about until you
rare.
just said that,
It's
that you're
rare.
right. I can try to talk to my parents and their friends and different things like that. And they're so set in their ways, and almost like if they change their mind, they're like
Admitting they were
relinquishing,
wrong.
yeah, admitting they were wrong or relinquishing their power. And
Right.
I'm like, that makes you way more accessible
Makes you
and right. But I mean, to be able to accept that, not, I'm not asking you to say you were wrong. I'm asking you to look at a bigger picture,
right.
because when they were growing up, they had less information. We just have more information now.
Right.
So you have to evolve when the information is given to you, because your opinion should change.
Yes.
It has to.
Yes. Or you're not
Because
growing.
you're not growing. And how can you possibly say, I mean, it's the same thing. You know, I hate bringing up this example, but so many people talk about it all the time, is when Blacks were slaves. I'm like, you
Right.
cannot make any decisions based on that anymore, because that was such a long time ago, that now the opportunities that there are for Black African Americans, you know, Black Americans, is just so different. And you have to understand that, like, I don't know, it's just crazy. You're right. So as millennials, we talk to each other all the time, and we are encouraging. I mean, I did not know how to vote in this past election. I was very disconnected to the United States. I didn't feel like they were listening to what we needed as a generation or anything. And I felt like, why would I even, like, give you my vote as an agreement to continue this chaos?
Right.
And So I talked to so many people. I talked to Republicans, Democrats,
Right.
libertarians. I talked to older generation, my generation. I talked to Gen Z. I talked to
Right.
everyone. I was just like, tell me where you're at. Like, how
Right.
can you help me with, just give me some perspective on how I can make a decision? Because then I take all the information. I don't
Right,
have to
of course.
use it. It's
Right.
there if I
And
need it.
apply it to your point of view.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just to touch on one of the things that I am doing as part of my work, my personal development work, I have a rage coach and I have a transformational coach.
That's right. We talked about the Rage Coach on
Yes.
Trifecta. I remember you saying that. You told us a great story. That was
Yes, I
hilarious.
love Jenny. I love Jenny.
Yes,
Jenny
yes,
Barber, just anybody you need a
that is hilarious.
tapping rage coach, she is your woman. She
I
is
love
your
that.
woman. My screen pillow is right over there. So, but part of the work that I'm doing with her is realizing this, um, this circle, and I can't remember what my other coach Morgana calls it, but there are all of these slices of pie in the circle, right? And then it starts this big, and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, but the very core of it, right, is your DNA. And this, what I'm about to say, and I know that my listeners are going to roll their eyes because I bring this up quite often because it's still, when I think about it, it still blows my mind. So the moment a fetus is determined in utero to be female, all of the eggs that she will ever have are produced.
Right.
Right? So that means that the egg that determines, right, the fetus, fetus, that person that became me, right? I have the eggs inside of me when I was still in my mother's womb.
Right.
So all of her trauma, I went through.
Right.
And I think about that.
That's crazy.
In terms of slavery. So it's in our DNA still.
Sure.
And so although that there's nobody alive anymore that went through slavery, but it's still in our DNA. And for me, especially when I think about, I can still, the hair stands up on my arms, on the back of my neck, and I get chills because I still feel a connection to that degradation.
Right.
And so, it's hard. I feel like it's hard it's the same thing that people who are survivors of the Holocaust.
Absolutely.
Right? It's been, 60 something years, right? But it's still in them. It's still in their DNA.
Well, and I think it's dormant. I think, like you said, it's dormant in their DNA. So when something like inequality happens or something, it just triggers that. And you feel like something is wrong. And you're like, why do I feel, obviously, I know this is wrong, but why is it affecting me so deeply in this moment?
Right.
And you realize that there's this underlying subconscious DNA, like you said, genetic thing that is happening that is causing you to feel this unbalanced or this intense about something that didn't maybe 100% directly affect you.
Right.
Didn't change your day to day, but just the fact that you're witnessing the inequality is triggering that response inside of you. So I love that analogy. That's a great visual.
And my rage coach helped me understand and be able to have the tools to deal with that anger, right? Because I walked around angry for the first 42 years of my life.
Wow.
To the point where the anger is like right here.
Yeah.
And that was something that I really had to come to terms with,
Yeah.
realizing that I was a rageaholic. I was a
Mm,
rageaholic, and raising my kids as a
yeah.
rageaholic, What kind of difficulties, struggles did you go through that you had to overcome?
Yeah. We all have our things.
Absolutely.
I when I started doing a lot of connecting with other coaches and people in my industry, I started thinking, wow, I had a great childhood. Like, I didn't really have a lot of bad things happen to me. I was so blessed and so grateful to have two amazing parents. And they got divorced when I was 12, but they made it so easy for my brother and I. And my dad moved down the street and made sure he brought us to school every morning. They went to parent teacher conferences together, birthdays, like they're
Wow.
they're still good friends to this day. Like,
Wow.
people thought, how are they divorced? They just
Right.
weren't meant to be together in a romantic way anymore. But so then I would compare my experiences to those who have been, God forbid, raped,
Yeah. Homeless.
abused,
Yeah.
homeless. I
Yep.
mean, it goes on and on.
Yep.
And I was told by a very amazing coach of mine that said, you cannot compare your traumas to other people's traumas. It's in your life and in your circumstance, your trauma is just as important as theirs is in theirs.
Absolutely.
And so just because in society we see one as being worse than the other, that
Right.
doesn't mean that you are not valid in what you're feeling and how you need to overcome it as a limiting belief.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I mean, still easier said than done,
Right.
because society's conditioning teaches
Right.
us, you've been blessed, be
Right.
grateful.
Right.
But that allowed me to kind of go deep into what I was feeling, and really trying to understand what it was that was holding me back, even if I didn't feel like it was holding me back. Yeah,
Say that again.
for the people in the back, right?
Say it again.
I mean, I didn't know some of these things were holding me back until I did energy clearings and found out my human design, and did meditations and journaling and all of these things that really released all of this inside of me that maybe was not prominent because I was an athlete. I was a competitive athlete. So, and in our industry, I mean, also in the Olympics and all of that,
Yeah.
like, you're not taught to show this emotion. You need
Right.
to push it down. You have a job to do. You have a title to win, and you need to be as perfect as you can be, and nothing can distract you from that. So the perfectionism is high with this one
Right.
because
Wow.
it came conditioned from a very young age.
Right.
And it's interesting that you bring up, because I don't bring this up very often, but the when you were talking about everything that happens from mom and how we in utero get, are exposed to that. I was supposed to be a twin, and my twin passed
Mm.
away at 3 months of pregnancy.
Oh,
So me being right there, I mean, I
right.
absorbed some of that. My brother was born. My parents went through some rough times at the beginning, and anything that was stressful with my mom, that was absorbed, whether it was in utero or whether I was,
That's right.
already out and
Yep.
4 years old or whatever.
Yep.
Um, and I don't consider, like, as I grew up, I never would have thought about that because I had a great childhood. I
Right.
was very, very happy. My
Right.
parents were thrilled to have me. I was the firstborn. It
Right.
was great, So I had all the opportunities and all of the resources available to me. But subconsciously, when you're not allowed to, when you're not encouraged to face your emotions head on, and you really have a task to do, and you don't have time to process what is happening,
Right.
that just gets pushed off and pushed off and pushed off. And if I won my title at 21, you can just imagine the
Yeah.
puberty and all of that
Right.
stuff that
Right.
in the moment didn't feel like I was being stifled. It did not feel like I was
Right.
being, you know, um, forced to be a certain way and not process, but my environment conditioned me otherwise. So, yeah, I think what I discovered, that I liked and I did not have, was this word that I'm obsessed with, is sustainability.
Mm.
And I've discovered this word, of course, like everyone else, through climate change and all of these
Yeah.
types of things. But sustainability crosses over into so many areas of our life.
Yes.
And and that is why we can't, a lot of people create resolutions at the beginning of the year, and then by February they drop off.
Right,
And
right. That's why
all
weight loss is hard. That's why quitting smoking is hard. That's why quitting
Exactly.
drinking is hard.
Exactly.
That's all because we've created these neural pathways in our brain that are easier to stay in than get out of.
Correct. So the sustainability of something is really, it's a game changer. It's what allows people to be successful. You look at any person that you admire, whether it be Oprah, to Elon Musk, to Warren Buffett, to Bill Gates, to anyone even in the pro athlete field. It's all about creating a sustainable plan that you execute with consistency.
Right.
And that is what allows them to be the elite of what they do, because they have just as many challenges as everybody else, sometimes even more.
Right.
But they don't allow that to get in their way of the one goal they're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And a lot of them have to go through, and they read a lot, and they have to understand their feelings and different things in order to get to where they're trying to go, because the ceiling caps on that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In fact, this is random, but I was just watching, I guess HBO put out a documentary on Tiger Woods.
Mm-hmm.
And what he went through. We all saw the news side of it, but we didn't see his side of it, and how he compartmentalized his emotions with his scandals and his, his divorce and his wife and the kids. And he wanted to, his only goal was to win and to be the greatest of what he could be.
Right.
And, some people would argue that's a very unhealthy way to do what he did. And watching his story, I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that. But I also feel like, what are you trying to do with your life?
Right.
I also think that now we have, he's also, I think he's in his 40s now. So I don't consider him part of my generation. So he went through things the only way he knew how, versus what's amazing about our generation, as you said, that we talk a lot, we're helping share resources. Yeah. And that's why the concept of having a life coach and someone to guide you in your life is like the ultimate game changer.
Right.
Yeah.
Acceptable and welcome and championed. And my mother thinks I'm crazy. So what the hell do you need coaches for? You don't even need one.
Right. You're an adult. You can't live your life.
Right.
Like, you can't figure it out on your own.
What are you talking about? You know, and we have such different views that I almost feel, well, I shouldn't say that, because we don't. We keep everything superficial.
Right.
Because we're on two totally different planes. Something I want to say to you, because I want you to hear this. My friend calls them the Jamie-isms. That comparison. What I always say, because I had that problem too with my weight. If I just looked like that,
I think we all feel that way.
I would be so much more successful. People would respect me. I would have more confidence. I would put myself out there more.
Yep.
But then I would say, but I had 2 kids in 2 years. I was in a domestic violence situation. I've been homeless. All of these buts kept me saying it's okay for me to be overweight. Right? And so the saying about comparison is everybody's life is their own war.
Right.
And no one's is bloodier than the other.
Love that.
Because when you think about it, any bloodshed is too much, because broken people and hurt people raise broken and hurt people.
Yep. Totally agree. That's, chills again. Yeah, for sure. It's never, even a little bit is too much.
Right.
Unfortunately, based on society, the conditioning, the environment, your parents will never be able to raise you with the information that you will be raised with.
Right.
It will develop and unveil itself over time.
Right.
And so if my mom was raising me today with the information she knows now, I would be a completely different person.
Yeah. And that's why I think older parents are better parents. That's why I think older parents are, because
they've gone through it.
Right.
Yeah. And
I
I've
mean,
said that to my fiance. We're getting married in a few months, and we've talked about when we want to have kids. And I'm like, I need to make sure that we are the parents we want to be, the spouses we want to be, that we've accomplished, not accomplished, but, just that we've gotten to a place where we feel that we are going to be raising kids with good values, good mindsets, and all the information that we could possibly gather before we just throw ourselves into this,
Right.
because they're going to grow up with whatever limiting beliefs they have. We can't avoid that, but we can try to make it so that they can start the journey faster than we did.
Right.
I think
Right.
that's the
Right.
goal. Like, I would love to have my dad introduced me to the law of attraction when I was 12 years old. I think I was one of the few in my generation, because he felt like that was an important, piece of information I need to know. But then for me, the law of attraction is the law, and manifestation is the application of that law. And if I would have had a manifestation at the beginning and gone deeper into that, and then also just understood, like I said, my industry required me to not have this sustainable, it was a very just like shoot up to the top like a rocket, and then and now what? Right. And you haven't dealt with everything yet. You just have one goal, and everything else gets pushed to the side. So with those two things, I would love my kids to just I've learned things now differently that will allow them to be a little bit more prepared. Or I'm going to start with them reading the book Essentialism. Have you read that book?
Yes. Yeah.
It's phenomenal. I require all of my clients to read that book. My business coach gave it to me when I was working with him, and it is literally exactly what it is, pun intended. It is essential to know what it is that we are putting ourselves into when we enter onto this planet, and this societal, norm of what they call, that we are programmed, this programming, that when you understand what is really important in life, you don't desire to do things that will require you to be an imposter, right? Or to feel like you have to perform,
right,
and not live from your highest self. Because so many times we feel in our gut or in our heart, this is not right. I don't know how to do this. And we think, well, everyone's going through the same thing, so you just have to power through.
Right.
And that's the wrong way to look at it. You have to listen to what it is that you desire. And you have all of the intuition inside of you. We just choose most of the time not to listen to it.
Right.
And that's hard, because that is a slippery slope of decision making that allows you to get to a point of very little return. And so now you have to make drastic changes that are now going to affect multiple people's lives or multiple situations. And you're going to have to backtrack, because you're going to hit a wall that won't allow you to keep faking it much longer.
Right.
And so the sooner you discover that, the easier it's going to be for you and your surroundings to be able to rebuild in a different direction or pivot.
Right. Yeah. It's those neural pathways. The longer we keep doing it, you think about, it's a track,
Yeah.
And the more you go round and round and round, the deeper the track gets, the deeper.
That's it. I call it the hamster wheel, which a lot of people do. And here's also the misconception is that we're on the hamster wheel. But I also believe that you could hop over to another hamster wheel.
Right.
In which case you think, oh, well, I escaped that craziness of, you're right, I quit my job. I'm not a 9-to-5er anymore. So I'm not working for the man. And now all of a sudden you're an entrepreneur, which is most of the people I work with, and they're exhausted. And they're working 10 times more, but it's fine, because I love what I do. So it doesn't feel like work. And I'm like, but you don't understand. You are numbing yourself with work. You feel like the only way to be successful is to continue to work, which means your limiting beliefs of money and how you accomplish and how you feel worthy are completely skewed. And now all of a sudden you're on this new hamster wheel. Yeah. And it's not any better than the last one. It's just bigger resources.
Right. It's just a different hamster wheel.
That's it.
And the foundation of that hamster wheel is the same track.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's the same patterns that you
So,
carried over when you were in your
right.
9 to 5, but now you're doing it for yourself as a boss. And now you have different, my business coach said this to me too at one point. He said, you will always have new issues. You
Yes,
get to a point where you're like, I need clients. Then you
yes,
get all these clients and you're like, I don't know how to manage these
right,
clients. And then you figure out how to manage. Oh my gosh, now I have to hire people. Oh
right.
my gosh, now I have to
How to
understand.
manage those people.
That's it. And now I have $1 million. What do more money, more problems, right? Isn't what
Right,
they say. So
right,
the idea is that I think the way, because I don't want people to think, oh, well, then it's not worth it. Let's not even do it. It's like, no, there are ways to do it that are, again, I come back to this word, sustainable, so that
right,
you're up leveling in a way that makes sense, that is able to have longevity, and you can actually maintain a healthy mental, physical, emotional balance throughout the process. And it doesn't have to be burnout,
right.
go burnout. And it can be a way that allows you to up level in a healthy way. Um, and that's it. I mean, it can be done, but people don't talk about that.
Right, right. It's
They just don't.
always about the journey and not about the destination. It's about
Right.
who you become on the journey that
Mhm.
matters. That's what matters.
Right.
Those layers that you're peeling away, the trauma that you're healing from, the less you bang into the next person and hurt them. That
Yes.
amount is minimized, and the ripple effects that you're putting out into the world that are more
Yes.
positive than they are negative. That's really what it's all about. When people
Mhm.
say, I haven't found my purpose yet, and I'm like, you are the purpose.
That's it.
You are the
That's it.
purpose. Who
Absolutely.
you become on the journey is the purpose.
Right. Or
So,
just your reaching, like the love for yourself,
right,
the happiness that you can manifest within you based on what it is that you desire, and realizing that you don't actually want all those things. You
right,
just see Kim Kardashian has them and you want them too. And
right.
society, I
Looks
have
good.
this I have this thing, this pet peeve, and I actually have never talked about it on a podcast, so I really want to. If you ever look at E! News, Entertainment Tonight, any of those Instagrams, they do their daily, recaps of the week, or
Yes.
or I guess of the day, and they will show you a happy couple. So and so just got together. Oh my gosh! And then the next slide is, meanwhile, this is us at home, sad, right? Or
Oh,
whatever. It's crazy. And I've reached out to them and told them, this is very toxic conditioning that you are sending into young girls, young boys' minds
right,
when they look at your stories. And I know exactly why they do it, because they're selling desire.
right,
That if we don't continue consumerism, the United States' economy just doesn't run.
right,
And so you have to desire the Mercedes. You have to
right,
desire the Skims that Kim is selling. You have to desire the lavish lifestyle or the love, so that then we can sell you products that will give you love and give
right,
you money and give you things that you desire. But
right.
then when you look at it, why are you desiring those things, right?
Mhm.
What is the feeling you're trying to accomplish, and what is it that they're trying to put in you, and you don't even realize you're being manipulated?
Right,
And that's very hard for me to see, this toxic programming that's
right,
happening, especially in Gen Z, because I did not grow up. I'm one of the top millennial, the older
right.
millennials, and I grew up with cell phone. Maybe I got my cell phone at the age of 16.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not
Right,
too bad. And I actually got it because it was supposed to be used for emergency purposes.
right,
Like if you're locked out of the school or you
right,
don't have a ride home, call me.
right,
And I didn't have texting. Facebook wasn't
right,
a thing yet. Like we didn't have any of that.
right.
So we weren't looking for people to like our photos or put filters on. Like, I don't look
Mhm.
like this, so I'm going to look prettier in my photo. And I
Right,
hope that that boy that I likes it. And if he doesn't, I mean, the suicide rate of Gen Z is just through the roof because of
right.
technology and social
Yeah,
media.
yeah,
And that is so unhealthy. And, if you've watched The Social Dilemma on
yeah.
Netflix and all these different things, like we know that that is happening. But I'm hoping that people like Elon Musk, he hasn't dove into the social media platform yet. He's done PayPal. But other than that, like I'm hoping that on top of the environment stuff, he can help to maybe do something with social media for future generations. Because I don't want my kids to have a cell phone,
Right.
and
Right.
so at school has one, so I need one too. And I'm gonna be like, you don't realize what I'm saving you from.
Right.
Like,
Right. Yeah.
like I actually don't think you need one until you need one.
Right.
Like, it's a tool. It's not your life,
Right.
you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
And that's where the programming, the limiting beliefs and the traumas and the toxic, programming comes from.
Right. Yeah.
And then we have to work through that as an adult. Unlearn everything.
Right. When I was raising my daughters, I had a very, very strict policy of they were not allowed to have any Barbies. Don't give them Barbies.
Mm,
Don't give them black
yeah,
Barbies. Don't give them polka dotted Barbies. I don't want Barbies in my house.
yeah.
They weren't allowed to play with toy guns
Oh,
ever.
thank God.
Water guns, all of that,
Yeah,
none of it. And
yeah, that's
everybody
dangerous.
thought I was crazy,
Of course,
crazy.
because they buy into the consumerism of what America is trying to sell.
Right,
You
right.
know?
And my girls, like when they, were old enough to start wearing bathing suits, they weren't allowed to wear two-piece bathing suits, They literally, until they were 17, they were not allowed to wear two-piece bathing suits, because what I would always say is there is nothing there is no one that needs to see your belly button. Nobody. There's just no reason.
Right.
There's no reason for them to see your belly button, and my youngest especially had a huge problem with it. We used to argue about it all the time. And I would say, I don't care if you understand or if you agree or anything else, doesn't matter to me. You're not wearing a two-piece bikini.
Right.
No is the answer. Now, this is my oldest daughter.
Oh, wow. She's beautiful.
She's gorgeous.
Yeah.
She's gorgeous. And she has self-esteem that I wish I had had at 27,
Yeah.
She's like, I don't care what you think about me. I don't care if you like me. I don't, you
Yeah.
know. So I feel like there needs to be more intentional sacrifices on the parents' part,
Mm,
and saying, I'm not going to just give in because it's the easy thing to do. Because I
right.
don't want to have this argument for the 15th time. Have it for the 20th, the 25th, for the 30th time.
Mm-hmm.
Because when they get older, then they're ready for the battle, right? They shouldn't be, I've seen grown men look at my 12-year-old daughter, and I literally will step in front of her and
Yeah.
do the, what the hell are you looking at? You
Right.
grown man looking at this child. Ew,
Right.
but now you got writing on their butts. Which when they came out with that, I was like, why would you put writing on a piece of clothing for a child?
Right. Because everything is over sexualized. That's there's we could go into conversation upon conversation upon the dehumanization of what society is doing,
Especially women.
especially women. There's this notion that it's getting better, and I think that we're raising it in one area as a distraction to show that this is exactly the same.
Right.
It's not getting any. Yeah.
Right. All we're doing is we're lowering the bar.
That's it. That's all
So
it
we're
is.
saying, the bar used to be this high.
Right.
Now we're lowering the bar. So it's getting better.
Right.
And you're like,
this is so crazy because I was literally just watching this new Netflix crazy trend, Bridgerton. Have you heard of it?
mm-mm.
So it's this new show that came out, and it's a period piece of, I don't know what time frame it takes place in, but these women are in high society and they have a season of looking for a husband. That's their only goal in life, is to look for a husband. They start that once they become of age, they are basically shopped, and they go to all the balls of the season and they court. And courting means you can't hold hands. There's no kissing. There's no nothing. It's all, all the women are virgins. Usually the men are not, because you see them in the background doing all these crazy things. Of course, double standard from the start. And the woman doesn't know anything about her body, about sex, about anything until she's married. until she's
Yeah.
now betrothed to her person. And that may be for love, and it may just be because two families want to come together to create more wealth. It could be lots of different reasons. And that's not an unheard of story. That's
Right.
very traditional in that time,
Right.
especially in that high society status. And there's a part of me that feels like some women to this day have some of those archaic views that they've modernized, and they think that it is different, but it is not. It is basically the same type of thing. And then that's when I feel they get into situations like abuse and, and all those things. And I am not saying that that is their fault.
Right.
It is definitely the fault of the person doing it. But how do we, the question I have is, how do we better prepare these women at a young age to understand their value, their worth, to never get in situations like this in the first place, to ever meet people that would do something like that to them? And I think you just nailed it. It's just, it's a case by case basis of, my daughter should understand the value of her body, so she should cover it up to a certain extent. She should not, she should know what she's worth, and she should not be parading herself all over Instagram and, different things. I think we have more resources now that actually make it worse for women to be, that's not an area that I cover, but it's an area I'm passionate about because I'm a woman in society.
Right.
We were looking for apartments. I just told you we got a new apartment. My fiance asked about the garage, and he asked about the rent, and he asked about, the utilities. And I asked, how safe is this neighborhood?
Right.
And I said, I'm sorry, I'm a woman and I need to know. And every person we talked to was, well, most of them were men, but some of them were, and they all obliged and said, let me explain and and whatever. I said, I'm going to be driving around here with my car and parking and going into my apartment, probably without my fiance, because we're coming from two different jobs. And I need to know that I'm safe. That's and right. I don't have to look over my shoulder every day.
Yep.
And that's something we grow up with differently. And if my dad prepared me for that. He always told me, look where you're going, make sure you don't walk, all these things.
Awareness.
Situational awareness.
Yep.
But awareness in general. I mean, we could go on a tangent on that of just people not being aware in general of walking, of being, this still gets me to this day when people walk the pedestrian. Well, the pedestrian right away. That gets me every time, because I'm sorry, like, sure, I'm at fault, right? Because you had the right of way, but now you're dead because you will never beat a car. Right. So at the end of the day, you cannot, this ego that comes out when people go, I have the right of way. And I'm like, you do understand that, like, this is not a my horse is bigger than your horse game. Right. My horse is always going to be bigger than your horse. I have a car. Right. So you cannot, this arrogance that comes out and this aggression. I mean, you said it yourself, you have a rage coach, like that is nothing to be ashamed of. That is something to learn what it is that you need in order to be able to participate in a world that allows you to feel healthy mentally and physically.
Right. Right.
That to me is winning at life. That's success right there.
Yeah, absolutely. When I know my triggers and I know that it hasn't triggered me, that's when I the little Jamie inside of me is like, yay,
you did it.
Yeah, literally. Like, when my mother used to say, just ignore him. And I'd be like, how do I do that? He's right there. He's bugging.
That's it.
He's doing it on purpose.
Exactly. No, my mom used to say, I love this because this is very generational. She goes, she goes, how are you? Oh, I'm dealing with this and this and this. Well, Christine, like, don't worry about it. That's what she said. Don't worry about it. And I'm like, oh, great. Thanks. I'm healed. Done.
Yeah.
Woohoo. And I'm like, and I've told her now, I'm like, it's not like that. You can say, like, obviously I know, that it's not an important thing, but it's not about don't worry about it. It's meditate on it. It's journal on it. It's take a walk around the block. It's create better morning and evening routines. Like this is the sustainable habits I teach. And it's like, these are ways that you can reprogram your mind to not feel triggered, which I'm sure you have all of these techniques and resources from your rage coach of how you can slowly but surely allow yourself to become a different person that is no longer this person that requires rage to feel worthy or noticed or to release something
Yeah.
or
To survive.
to survive.
Just to survive.
Like you're being taught better tools and better resources that allow you to show up in the world in such a healthier way for yourself. It's
Right.
not for other people, it's
Right.
for yourself.
Right.
You need the peace of mind.
Right.
You need to go home and feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
You
So
need
that
to live in a world. Yeah.
so that I do not drop dead of a heart attack at 50.
Thank you. Yeah, totally. Or push gas and run into someone else on the
Right.
highway.
Right. Or snap and kill my whole family. I mean, there are so
Yeah.
many instances of people where they're like, yeah, well, they were going through some, marriage problems and
Right.
financial issues. There's only so much that a person can take.
Right.
And either their mind's going to snap
Yep.
or their spirit is going to snap.
Yep.
And if their spirit snaps, that usually means death.
Right.
And if their mind snaps, that means somebody else's death.
Yeah. Right.
So,
Oh yeah. How many times do we hear of these mass shooters and all of these things that have
Right.
happened that, and then you find out deeper and deeper and deeper. Oh, and he had an estranged relationship with his
Right.
wife and he was running from this and why he had all of these,
Right.
firearm and all of these
And
things
then they're still asking, well, I still don't understand why he did it.
right. Yeah.
You don't understand because you aren't at that place and
Correct.
have never been at that place.
Correct.
There was a time in my custody battle where someone literally had to sit on me or I was going to go kill my ex.
Mhm.
She literally had to place her body on top of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was like, screw it. I'm done fighting.
Yeah. Right.
And if I'm never going to get them back, then I'm going to inflict pain on him
The way he did on me.
and
Amen. Yeah. And some people would say, well, that's not the right way to do it. You can't fight fire with fire. And it's like, but that's not what you're thinking in that moment. In that moment, you are in such a place of just pure emotion that you're not thinking logically. Logic has left the building.
Oh, please. Got
long ago.
Down the street and is not even looking in the rearview mirror.
Right. And that's the thing is that we have to remember like triggers, habits, all of these things, they come from this subconscious place that we don't even realize we do it. Why do we say, when you're driving and then it's like, oh, I'm supposed to go here, but I always take this road. It's like, sorry, I was on autopilot.
Yes.
Right. That's a societal way to explain subconscious behavior.
Right. Yes.
That's like, oh, I've justified it. I was on autopilot.
I did a live. I can't remember what day I did it on. I think it was Wellness Wednesday. And I said the danger of autopilot.
It's terrible.
Because that same day I was supposed to go to the grocery store, but I needed to go to a different grocery store that I normally don't go to get a specific thing. Right. That's not good. Twice I went to the wrong grocery store because I wasn't present.
Right.
I was on autopilot.
That is the power. But autopilot doesn't even have to be when you're driving. It can be waking up in the morning and taking your toothbrush and just, doing what you do, or eating the same thing every day, or walking a certain path on, whatever it can be, picking up your mail, at the post office. And people don't realize that all of those little behaviors make up your life. It makes up your behaviors. And so those are what, that's the logic side of what I do with manifestation's amazing. It's a game changer. It is the application of the law of attraction, and the law of attraction always works whether you believe it or not. And you can manifest anything from money to love to cars to, ideally a lot of people, when they understand manifestation at a deep level, they realize a lot of those things they don't even want, that ends up coming because they end up loving themselves first, which is the higher purpose we were discussing before.
Right.
But when it comes to your life and the day-to-day, because manifestation is a process that takes time to perfect.
Yes.
Exactly. In the meantime, your day-to-day that helps you to be more high vibe on a daily basis is your behaviors and doing habits that come from intention.
Right.
I intentionally want to wake up at this time because I want to get to the gym. And even if I'm in the gym for 10 minutes, that's fine because that helps me to start my day.
Right.
Right. Or I intentionally want to eat 3 meals a day that are healthy and no more than that, because
Right.
I am trying to look a certain way. And by doing that, then by putting manifestation on top of that, it almost supercharges you
Yeah.
and allows you to really live with, you're basically, you have the belief and you're taking the aligned action, and the
Right.
habits are the aligned action.
Right.
Versus you want to manifest a slim body and you won't stop eating junk food.
Right.
That's not the aligned action of the manifestation you're trying to acquire.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And,
You know?
and we talk ourselves into it. I've done it.
Yeah.
I've been the person that's been in the McDonald's drive-through and said, I'll take a Big Mac, large fry, and a Diet Coke.
Right. Totally. Because now I feel good about it. I've justified my actions. We've all been there in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't even have to be with weight. It can be anything. It can be like, well, I used to do it with relationships, right? I was not in relationships. I wanted to find my husband, and I was just carefree and living my life and not committing to anyone, because my lifestyle, traveling on a plane all the time, did not facilitate that.
Right.
And my best friends were like, I thought you said you were wanting something more serious. Your actions are completely different. You're never
Right.
going to find that with these guys.
Right.
Right. And so you justify it. And you're like, well, this person's not really husband material. So I'll just hang out with him for a couple of months and then I'll move on. This is for now. I'm busy. I'm always on a plane, but while you're entertaining that person or the idea or whatever it is, then that person you're looking for will never show up in your life. You are not making space in your life for that person to come in. Right. And in turn, you will be constantly searching for that end result until you make changes and choose to be different.
Right. Right. Yeah.
That's
I love it. I love it. Oh man, this has been.
It doesn't work.
Right. This has just been so great. And I thank you so much for your time and sharing space. And,
of course.
It's funny because I feel like there's people that can help raise your vibration in this world, and I think that you are one of them. I think you are one of the people.
That means a lot.
Yes, because even though we might not agree on everything, I know that it comes from a place of love.
Of course, but that's what makes it fun.
Right.
If you were just like me, then I don't need to have a conversation with me. I'm with me every day.
Right.
I want to hear what you have to say. And
don't tell Charisse that though.
Well, and listen, the agree to disagree is, it's an interesting term because I don't like the concept of disagreeing. I have an opinion and you have an opinion. And just because maybe your opinion doesn't work for my lifestyle doesn't mean that you're not right in your lifestyle.
Exactly.
As long as you're not hurting anybody and you're living your truth, then why does it matter what I think about that opinion? We can go as the first thing that comes to mind is LGBTQ.
Yes.
I can't even say it. LGBTQ. I just said it this morning and all of a sudden, LGBTQ, like that's amazing. Like for people to feel like someone else's decision of who to love is affecting their life is seriously tormented and having a lot of issues that they need to deal with. That's their insecurity coming out, not the other person. The other person is living their truth and they're jealous that they can't live theirs.
Right. And I think that you can go down a rabbit hole and with that. And like the biggest one I can think of is abortion, right? I would never have an abortion. I would never want my daughters to have an abortion, but I don't have the right to tell another woman not to have an abortion. And for me, the reason behind that is because I don't have to pay for the consequences. Right. She does.
Absolutely.
She does.
Absolutely.
So that's between her and God, her and the universe, her and her karma, whatever it is. But you shaming her and you casting her out like she's a piece of garbage, that's your karma.
That's right.
And so like
you now made it your problem. And so now you're going to get the wrath of that because you're right. It doesn't make any sense. You were never involved in that situation in the first place.
Never involved.
You know what I mean? And even, you said your daughters too. your daughters are probably going to make some decisions that you maybe don't agree with. It's
Absolutely.
a generational thing. And,
Absolutely.
planning my wedding, my mom and I have definitely had some difference of opinions of how she
Right.
did things versus how I do things.
Right.
And that's okay. As long as we discuss it freely and openly and respectfully, I
Right.
don't see any issue. I definitely try as a life coach to try to articulate my point very honestly and very clearly so that
Right.
she can see, oh, this is where she's coming from. But there's no need to be aggressive about it so that we all get defensive. There's no need for, name calling or feeling like just because you did it this way and shaming that person, like that is unnecessary. And that's what I'm hoping starts to turn around in this country.
Yeah.
And I say this country, it's the world, the whole world needs some healing,
Yeah.
but America has been through it. And we all really need to start, creating some more.
Oh,
Whole thing.
did I lose you? Oh, there you are.
Oh, there we go. A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So
We're back. We're back.
Yeah. I, and my listeners will know that I'm very passionate about a lot of things. And when I start to get really passionate, I curse, right? It's something that I do. It's just who I am. And I've tried to curb it. I really have. But that people see that as anger and not passion.
I see.
Big difference. There's a big, big difference. And so people will say, let's just use, for instance, the whole George Floyd incident, and people are like, well, that didn't happen to you. So why do you care? And that instantly, like,
that's an ignorant response.
And I'm like, and then I'm like, rah, 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 rah. But I'm not angry. I'm passionate. There's a difference. I don't want to hurt you, right? I don't want to hurt you, but I want you to try to understand that George Floyd represented my brothers.
Right.
I could see my brothers
laying because it could have been.
It could have
easily.
And so for you to say it didn't happen to you, you don't understand. Just like rape. When you find out a good friend has been raped, oh my gosh, it just
we don't want that pain for someone else. I mean, you don't need to take it on so that now all of a sudden we feel like the world is, our world is shaking and we can't move forward. But at the same time, I think the thing with George Floyd specifically was, how do we stop this from happening? So next time it's not your brother.
Right.
So next time it's not my fiance. My fiance is Haitian, but in this country, he's Black.
Right.
It doesn't matter where he's from or what language he speaks, he's Black. And how do we keep that from happening time and time again, in the future for our kids? My kids are going to be interracial. Are the cops going to see them more as Black or white? I have no idea.
Right.
We're going to only know in that moment.
Right.
And we're hoping to prepare them enough in life, and things can change and rules can, laws can get passed that can allow for protection of our families.
Right.
I mean, that's it. So for people, it's been interesting, the concept of white privilege that has come up and discussing that. And, I have a podcast where I did a whole, Black Lives Matter, right after it happened, all the protests and everything. I had a friend of mine who's a very esteemed professor, and he's Black as well. And he kind of guided me through that. And I said, I don't want people to think that I'm just this white girl talking about Black Lives Matter. I was like, but we need to discuss this. My podcast is all about having the hard conversations and starting the conversation about racial and discrimination, body image, all the things. And so I said, this is right up our alley. We have to discuss this. And my kids are going to be half and half. My husband is going to, I'm related to this. This is now affecting me. But even if it wasn't affecting me, like, that's the whole point, is that's when you see the white privilege, is when you see that people are not affected and they're like, why are you letting this bother you? Or even worse, when the protests were affecting some people.
Right.
And they were like, I can't get to a doctor's appointment. I can't do that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh, this is so not like, please don't go out and tell people that because you
Right.
sound
Yeah.
ridiculous.
And
This is
like
not about that.
when people say to me, even to this day, when they're like BLM and Antifa is the same thing,
Oh,
and I
yeah.
and I say, okay, first of all, please go look up Antifa because it's a
Right.
belief, it's not a group, it's a
Right.
belief, and it means
Right.
anti-fascism. So if you are against Antifa, you are for fascism. Are
Right.
you for fascism?
Right.
Really?
People don't do their research. Again, that's the social programming because
God.
it's terrible because whatever you see on Facebook and whatever your friends are sharing,
Right. Is where you find your beliefs.
is where you find your beliefs. And, this is
Oh,
also something really related to what I do is manifestation. The concept of manifestation is what is allowing yourself to create a high vibe so that you are always attracting abundance to you.
right.
Well, in order to attract abundance to you, you need to be living in abundance. You can't be
Right.
attracting abundance from scarcity.
Right.
So
Right.
walking around and I hate my car and I hate my
Yeah.
life and I hate this and you're just thinking, but I want more, so I'm going to
Right.
attract more. No, you have to be thankful for the crappy car that you have that may stall
Right.
because it's getting you where you need to go in that moment.
Right.
And then as much as you're appreciative for that, imagine yourself in a better car. You know what I mean? And visualize and do all of those things. But the same thing with the manifestation can happen on the other side. If you're
Yep.
attracting whatever it is that you are bringing into
Focus.
your circle, that's what you see. So
Right.
when everyone says, well, yeah, I was looking for a Toyota and,
Right.
All of a sudden now that's all I see on the road.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, it's the same concept. So
Right.
if you imagine Facebook is your reality,
Yes.
right? Facebook is the virtual reality of what we see
Yes.
in the real world. And if you are someone who believes that Black Lives Matter and Antifa are the same thing, if you're someone who believes that, the people that stormed the Capitol were, trying to make Trump look bad, and I'm not saying I'm the
Yeah.
opposite of that. I'm just saying these are all narratives that are floating around.
Right.
That is exactly what you're going to see. If you're going to
Right.
see, if you believe that the coronavirus tests are accurate and
Right.
that we have 400,000 deaths because of coronavirus, and you don't believe that the hospitals are actually fudging those numbers a little
Right.
bit,
Yeah.
you will see articles, you will see news stories that will support your decisions.
Right.
And I see different things than what some of my family members see,
Right.
and that's not because of a setting on my Facebook. That's because of
Right.
the energy I'm putting out.
Right. Right. Oh, right.
It's very different. And so people go, well, this is what I saw. I said, well, let me send you this one because this is what I'm seeing. And
Right.
it's in the same reality that we're all living in, but it's not coming up on your feed. So you don't believe that it's there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is just a prime example of just anything of just, well, life is hard. I can't have so-and-so's life. It's like, you can have whatever life you want.
Right.
You have to believe that it's there. And seeing is not always believing. Sometimes you have to believe before you see.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's very hard for some people. And I say, well, if you believe in God, if you believe in, you know what I mean? All of these
Right.
things that people say that they don't see, but they believe in, then why can't you believe in manifestation?
Right. Yeah.
The same thing, you know?
Oh my gosh, we could talk for 3 more
Yeah.
hours,
Yeah, we could.
but I want people to actually listen to the podcast and not be scared off
Yeah.
that it's an
No, you're
hour
right.
long.
I know. You're right.
We
Totally.
better go.
Totally.
But thank you so much, Christine.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, I'll have you back, in like
Oh,
6
yeah,
months or so,
sure.
because I love to have people back on that I've been on because there is always some. So tell me about, we talked about this last time and so I'd love to come, after you get married and
Yes.
move into your new place and all of that.
Totally.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll stay in touch. But in the meantime, if people want to get in touch with you, how
Yeah.
would they do that?
Definitely. Yeah. So you can, I'm really active on my Instagram, which is Christine Bar Noël. And I'm sure you'll have links and stuff. They can grab that. And then, yeah, I do clarity calls. So you can go to my website, christinebarnoel.com. And you can sign up for a free, 20-minute clarity call and just see if you're looking for answers. That's the reason I put my services out there. I love just touching base with people on a real time to allow when people are searching for something and they don't know where to start, I can give them guidance and show them what's possible. So if that seems like you and you just need some answers, there's no pressure for selling. There's no pressure for working with me. You can go anywhere you want to go, but I'm hoping that I can at least guide you in a direction of knowing where you need to go next. And if that's with me, great. And if it's not, that's great too.
Right. That's awesome.
So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for your time and energy
Absolutely.
and space. And it's
Thank you for having me. You're fantastic as well. Like, well, you don't allow me to give you the compliments that you give me, but thank you for, creating a platform like this that allows us all to be able to share space and talk about things that a lot of people just avoid. This is really important because I think that's where change is made, is when people, like you said, they're going to listen to a podcast like this and they're going to say, wow, they make a really good point. Why did I not think of it that way? Because they had parents and conditioning and societal programming that allowed them to think a certain way. And by hearing something different, it allows you to change your mind and be better.
right. It
That's
gives
it.
you permission. One of the things that
Yes.
I love about the different types of guests that I have on is I'm the same, but my guests are different.
Of
So you're going to reach somebody that my last guest couldn't, and the
course.
guest before that, and the guest before that.
That's
That's
beautiful.
why I don't have a screening process. There's no
Yep.
application for you to fill out, because
Right.
I trust the universe that they're going to bring me,
Yes.
that the universe is going to bring me the people that need to be heard by others, right?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
so who am I to sift through applications and be like, no, I don't think she fits the, no,
Right. You're not worthy. Yeah. No,
yeah,
everyone, what is it that Oprah says? Everyone has a story and we can learn
everyone
from
has a
every story. So yeah.
everyone has a story, and there's somebody
Yeah.
out there that has a similar story that's
Right.
going to resonate with you, that's then going to say,
Absolutely.
oh my gosh, if she can do that, I really think that I can.
Right. Or
So
just relating, like that's how I found a lot of my coaches, is I
right
saw myself
in
in my
them,
coach, in them, and I said, well, wait a minute. Like, also, that's another piece of advice. Don't take any advice from people whose life you don't want. When I saw these coaches' lives, I said, that's the kind of person I want. Not necessarily to be a coach. At the time, I wasn't looking to be a coach, but now that I am, but even just seeing their journey. And I was like,
right,
oh my gosh,
right,
I did that. I was crashing and burning. I was
right,
doing this and I related to that. So they were able to talk to me and help me the way that they helped themselves or the way that they got help from another coach.
exactly,
And it's just a domino effect of, reprogramming your mind and your limiting beliefs to be able to just be free of this programming and this, conditioning that we've been just, just
yes,
piled on over
yes,
and over. It's exhausting,
it is right, awesome.
So yeah,
Oh, thank you so much, Christine.
so welcome.
Like I said, it's been a pleasure. I
Same.
truly appreciate your time and energy.
At anytime. Thank you for allowing the space and thank you for sharing space with me as well.